In the last section, we had a brief discussion about RBAC and security in a Kubernetes cluster. At the very end, we decided that for Tiller to work properly, we need to create it a service account and then create a cluster role binding and assign it to the service account we create. So here's what we're going to do. These are the two commands we have to execute. The first command is, well, you can read it. I'm not going to read it back to you. Essentially, the first command right here is going to create us a new service account with a name of Tiller. And it's going to create that service account in the namespace of kube-system. Now, the only reason that this is being put in the kube-system namespace is just to make sure that you and I do not accidentally mess around with it for some reason if we put it in some other namespace. After we create that service account, we'll then give it a cluster role binding. So this second command down here is going to create a cluster role binding with a name of Tiller cluster rule. The cluster role, or essentially the set of permissions that it's going to have, is going to be cluster admin. This is a preset cluster role, and it essentially means that anyone with the role of cluster admin can make as many changes as they want to just about anything across the entire cluster. After that, we then are going to assign this newly created cluster role binding to the service account called Tiller. Notice how the name over here, it has the namespace of kube-system, which is the kube-system namespace we assigned up here, and then a colon after it. So the name of the service account is Tiller, but it exists in the kube-system namespace. All right, so that's the two commands we need to run. After we run those commands, we can then run that helm init command, which was what we were told to run after we had installed Helm originally. So this is going to be a fair amount of typing, so I do have to ask you to watch your typing here. You're going to get immediate feedback if you entered something incorrectly. It's going to tell you, hey, I've got no idea what you're doing here. But that's going to be the two commands we have to run, so let's get to it. I'm going to flip back over to Google Cloud, and I've got my shell open right here. So we'll first start off by creating our service account. I'll do kubectl create service account namespace kube-system, and then the name of the account is going to be Tiller, like so. So I'll run that, and now my service account called Tiller has been created. So now we're going to create our cluster role binding and associate it with that Tiller account. So we'll do kubectl create cluster role binding. The name of this cluster role binding is going to be Tiller cluster rule. We're going to assign it a authorization rule set through -- cluster role equals cluster -admin. And then finally, we'll specify the service account that we want to associate this cluster role binding with. So I'll say -- service account equals kube-system : Tiller. Now again, triple check the spelling on this command right here. It is awfully long, many places where you could very easily make a little typo. I'm going to very quickly enlarge this to be very large so you can read it very easily. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to run that command, and I should see that the cluster role binding was successfully created. Great. All right, so now that we've done both those, I'm going to zoom back out here really quick. Now the last thing that we'll do is initialize Helm. Remember, it's that Helm init command that we were told to run after we went through that initialization process. If you wanted to, you could always look back at the installing Helm directions over here. And somewhere in here, I'm not going to find it because, again, this is just a huge document. It's all one file, so it's really hard to find stuff in here. But if you look through here, it's going to say somewhere, oh yeah, run Helm init after you do that in installation. So we're going to run Helm init, but we're going to add on a little option or two here. So we need to tell Helm exactly what service account Tiller should be assigned. So we're going to say, Helm, you're going to initialize yourself, and I want you to use the service account of Tiller that was just created. We're going to add on one additional flag to this thing, -- upgrade like so. The -- upgrade flag is just going to make sure that we're using the latest version of Helm. Okay, so we'll run that command, and then we'll see a little bit of a print up here, and that's pretty much it. So we now have Helm installed, and we can now use it to install brand new services such as Nginx Ingress inside of our application. So let's take a quick pause right now. When we come back to the next section, we're going to use Helm to install Nginx Ingress, and we are going to use Helm to install some stuff later on as well. So even though it might seem like, yeah, doing all this Helm stuff was a little bit overboard for what we're using it for, we are going to install stuff later on that we definitely need Helm for. So let's take a quick pause right here. When we come back to the next section, we'll continue with our ingress setup. So I'll see you in just a minute.